my friends and someone I work very closely with, which is Andrew. So Andrew is our COO. He supports our whole company on operations, but his background is also quite diverse. He was in quite a number of big companies. One of them is like Starbucks and Deliveroo in the past to lead the entire company, while he is also a coach, a personal coach to a lot of executives. So he would share a lot of like how we should coach our students as well, or our kids as well in AI era later on. While Jennifer, hello. I think a lot of you might have known her already. She's a very seasoned educator who has been in the education field for around like over 16 years. And she supported a lot of families to lead the students to prestigious schools like like Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, all these kind of schools, supporting them and guide the families as well. And she actually also runs schools in the past, no matter international or local schools. So she would share a lot from educator point of view, but also she has 2 kids of similar age. Andrew also has a teenage kid, so they will be sharing from educator point of view, coach point of view, and also a parent's point of view. So really feel free to jump in, because it's a very casual chat today. All right, let me start. Hello. So maybe I should start with Andrew. So Andrew, you're representing Preface. So I just want to get to understand right now in the AI era, what sort of things we are actually doing, or what sort of, let's say, opportunity first. What kind of opportunity you see from our children nowadays in the AI era? Let's not talk about the challenge here. All right?
Hello. So Alan mentioned that I'm also a parent, so my son actually just turned 15, so getting to a very challenging age. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. You were talking about opportunities. One thing, listening to the presentations just now, I know JJ has also asked a lot of our kids about how AI has helped them as they were building the programming. And I remember actually reading an article just about a week ago by someone who, with the name of Aditya Agawa, who you will not know the name, but he is actually one of the founding engineer for Facebook. So he actually built a lot of the social media for that a lot of us are still using right now, and he was kind of just talking with wonders how in the old days he was basically using a lot of number of hours to build the social media site, whereas I don't know whether you have heard a few weeks ago there was a social media site that was built by AI agents for AI agents. So it's really amazing how far that has gone. So in terms of opportunities, there is definitely a lot of opportunity, because in the old days, the products that we are creating may be really limited by our pure resources, the time that we have. But with the advance of AI, actually, the speed of how much we can create, if we know how to create, that can be 100 times faster than what we have built in the past.
Can I immediately jump in to ask a controversial question? Because a lot of parents ask me, oh, now AI can code. Why do I send my kids to programming classes again? I mean, do we still send them to programming classes? Andrew, what is your answer for that?
I think one metaphor I would give is, I will always find the best boss that I have are the ones who have gone through what I have gone through. So they know how things can be done, what are some of the best ways to really give directions. And in a way, that's actually very similar to how the relationship between coding and AI. If you don't know how to code, which I know a lot of us don't. When we try to do vibe coding, when we try to ask AI to create something, it remains actually very basic. It looks nice, of course, because that's what AI can create. But it won't get to the advance that I was talking about before. But for our kids, or if we actually learn how to code, and we can give much better direction to AI, that can really advance the complexity of the projects and can create a lot more than how it would if we have no basic knowledge of coding at all.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I remember just now JJ asked questions about what API is, what is like CV something, what's the library called again?
OpenCV.
OpenCV, okay. So it's about the camera, about how to activate a video to read face. So if they don't know about this kind of concept, they might not be able to really code properly or bring the idea in life properly as well. All right, thank you, Andrew. So now let's get to my good friend, Jen. So Jen, you have actually helped millions, not millions, but like thousands of families, I would say, tens of thousands of families, to bridge their kids to really good schools. Do you think in the AI era, how portfolio should be like, and what would you develop them if you were to support the family again?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. Great friend, and I love the work that Preface is doing. I think it's very necessary. Maybe I'll just go back. I will answer your question for sure.
All right.
It's the most practical question. I know parents might want to know the answer. But I just want to give you a little bit of my background and also what I have seen education, how education industry has been changing over the past 16 years, and what I see going forward. So I actually started my career in investment banking in Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs, and I was there for 8 years. And then I was inspired to go into education because I felt at the time we were seeing a lot of amazing CVs, and especially in Goldman at the time we needed to recruit students with trilingualism. So we started recruiting from Hong Kong universities. And I remember seeing these amazing CVs, Superman CVs, and thinking, oh, I'm really underachieving here. They came in, and we thought, wow, they really didn't really have the transferable skills we wanted in the real world. Things like critical thinking, ability to ask questions. And so that inspired me to go into education. And after 6 months, I decided to start as a teacher in a local school. And with that then, I started teaching critical and lateral thinking combined with current affairs, and that was when IB became popular in Hong Kong. 16 years ago, most schools then switched into IB. And in Hong Kong, we started liberal studies, right? So everyone was talking about critical thinking being important. At the time, so that's how we started in education. But then many parents looked at our profile and were like, oh, Oxford, Ivy League, and so started coming to us for university counseling. So after a few years of doing enrichment programs, critical thinking, and we're still doing it, parents started asking us to help with university applications. So at the time, it was actually very easy to augment students 16 years ago. It was simply information mismatch. So many parents didn't know universities looking for this kind of information, this kind of background, this kind of profile. So just by bridging students a little bit, helping them do the preparation for the exams a little bit earlier, telling them, oh, with profile, you have to do like, community service, do some leadership. It already had augmented students' ability to get into top schools very easily. So at one point, in 1 year, we got 30 into Oxbridge.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
And
how
so-
many years do you need to augment them?
Maybe just like 1 year for UK because it's more academic. US maybe 2 to 3 years because they look at 4 years of transcript. But we really felt it was kind of like common sense at the time. Okay, then 6 to 8 years of what we call the golden age of my former company Arch, which I founded. And then what hit was universities started to become very transparent. Okay, so we started putting things up on the website. Students are sharing, and what we saw in the past 6 to 7 years is no longer profiling. It was actually talent development. It was storytelling. So as opposed to, oh, just do more of this, do more of that, and tick the boxes, and then you get into top universities, now it's, what is your story? What do you believe in? But most students at the age of 15, 16 are like, no idea, right? Or you talk to the mom has a very strong idea, the dad also has a very strong idea, and they're usually polarized. And then the kid in the middle is like, no idea, right? Yeah, 15-year-olds are usually like this. And that's why I didn't have a kid until quite late, because I'm like, oh, I'm very scared of working with teenagers. And then, so you start really talking to students And students really started having more self-awareness and more agency, which means if they do not buy into the concept, they will not do it. So in my first 8 years, I was like, do this, do that, do this, and the kids will just do it, right? In the past 8 years, it's like, do this, no, I'm not interested, right? My friends are not doing it, I don't want to do it. So it's really about really understanding children and teenagers and really making them reflect on their interests. So making that process what we call passion meets purpose. The purpose gets to university, but during the process, they have to build passion, because otherwise it's very hard for me to basically pull a cow off a tree, so to speak, right? So, but then even with that, I see a lot of competition. So just doing community service is not enough. You have to like start a society. You have to be the leader of the society, and you have to like build a business when you're 16. So we're really seeing more of that. Look at Eileen Gu for US universities, right? She is not just an extreme sportsman. She does dance, she does singing, she does everything. So we're what we call T-shaped candidate. You really have to have that T, the breadth of interest. Then you have that unique kind of setting point of yours, right? And at the same time, over the past 8 years, we see a huge great inflation, which means students are getting access to free resources, even from like developing countries, emerging countries, who by default already have a much more engaging story than your child from Hong Kong. So imagine they're from Afghanistan, a girl, first generation applying to universities, just by birth, they already have an interesting story. So, of course, not to mention, you have much more, many more students applying from China. In my first 8 years, they didn't really speak much good English, because for the past 8 years, so many students from the age of 2 already enrolled in international schools in China. So they are also applying for humanities, for the so-called non-Asian popular subject. So what I'm trying to say is, as of 2 to 3 years ago, we can see huge grade inflation, profile enhancements to a point of talent development. Students need to start like looking into their specific interests to build that talent a few years before they even apply to universities. So what that means is, it's a lot of pressure on teenagers. And then you couple that with technological advancements, which means they don't no longer speak that much to parents, and even they engage themselves with a community that is more cyber. It's kind of hard to sometimes motivate students. So over the past few years, the way we motivate our students is gone down to 3 things, and this will tie with the profile. 1, we realized actually talking to them about university subject is not motivating. Because most students at secondary school, they only do 3 A-level subjects, or 6 IB subjects, or 7 DSE subjects. But at university, you can choose, there's a variety of 35,000 subject choice. And most of these students, when they're so bogged down to just getting the grades, especially on subjects they're not automatically interested in, the motivation may be lacking. So what's really important is actually showcase to them that the world is vast. Actually, getting the grades is just the process. But think about where you might be in the future in the world. So for example, if they like art, maybe they can be an architect in the future, maybe they can be in design in the future. But to get there, what do you need to do? What kind of qualifications
Wow, so
do
you
you need?
have to break it down from early
Yeah.
stage.
So I think it's really about inspiration. So let's not talk about profile yet, because profile is about what do I need to do to tell my story, right? But number 1 is aspiration, which comes from inspiration. And the inspiration is not academics, it's really what the world is advocating.
So we gotta show them the world when they were young.
Yeah, so I'm very big on industry exposure. So even when I was 16 years ago, when I left Pullman to go to education, I was like, I want to bridge the real world to K-12. And then over the past few years, when I built school in China, we also did programs like bringing kids into Audi, the 40 million square feet plant, and they actually went in for 2 weeks and built a car. And the car got driven back to our schools, and it passed all the quality check and everything. So that way they really see how the real world works. Oh, this is engineering. Oh, this is fashion. And to do that, I need to do these things in the coming few years. So I think inspiration, aspiration is very important. And secondly, is passion. So even the other day, I went to a talk hosted by the head of college admissions society in the US. And he actually said, and a parent put his hand up and was like, what story should my kid tell them? Everyone has a story. And everything they do is trying to fit into the story. And the gentleman was like, actually, that's the wrong way around. You should talk about what things that you do that informs your story, right? So the second thing that's about passion. So what that means is it could be passionate in anything that you do. It could be magic, it could be tennis, it could be a music instrument, it could be anything. And you might think, well, US, that fits the profile because US is all about your personality and your interests, right? But UK is all about academics, right? But why I still think personal passion is so important is because in the future, in a very unpredictable world, whether they have a job or not, you want them to be happy at the end of the day. So actually having that genuine passion is very important. And in the future, maybe through that passion, it will become a career, right? So the second thing is about passion in anything. And usually with that passion, it infiltrates into academics and everything else. And the third thing then is actually students' understanding of universities. So what are they trying to get out of university? Which university is the right fit for them? So some universities are like big universities, big lectures, and some are like smaller community colleges. And some is like Hong Kong universities, become much more popular now because it's very, very international. 1 year in Hong Kong, 1 year in UK, 1 year in America. So I think for students, it's even more important that they find the right fit in the tertiary institution because that will be a stepping stone into the real world. You want them to flourish at university so that they have the confidence to find a job in the future. So back to your question on profiling. Students should really start thinking about it 4 years before they apply to university. So at the age of 14, so the child should be in the middle of it already. And the first thing they should really think about is what regions they want to apply to. Because different region has a very different philosophy. UK is increasingly academic, but they're also increasingly interdisciplinary. So back in nowadays, economics, there's only one economic subject at LSE. But now there are 9. You can do economics and maths with economics, they're 2 different subjects. You can do economics with political science, so there's more interdisciplinary things. And then if you go for, let's say, US universities, they look at 4 years of your profile. And then, so that's the first question. The second question then is whether you're going to pursue professional subjects. This professional subjects will actually require certain subject choice at secondary school. So for example, if you do economics and you don't do high-level IB maths, if you don't do, let's say, M2 for DSE, you can't even apply to the top 5 universities to do pure economics in UK. And there's a big emphasis on maths as well in US, but US you can at least opt out of subject choice. So I think that's a reality check, right? And then the third thing then is the students' passion, how they want to bring impact to the community. So that what's really important for kids nowadays is to have that gratefulness for the community. And if you were to give back to community, which segment might you want to impact? And given your subject interest, given your talents, how would you want to bring value to the community? So that is in a nutshell how we look at profiling. It's passion meets purpose, but at the same time practicality and reality versus ideology as well.
Right, thank you, Jennifer. Let's give her a round of applause first. I feel like I'm already in a consultation section right now. Yeah, so I hear a lot of starting young, they need to get the aspiration, they need to know their passion, and they also need to learn about what universities are like. So, wow, that's a lot of work from the family, I would say. So you would all need to know about all these things and also maybe build students and make sure the experience is in the right direction. What about genuinity? Yeah, so how do we build the genuine out of all these work, I would say?
So from my, I'll make sure this response is shorter than my previous one. But from my experience as an educator, right, basically doing counseling, from my experience operating schools and starting a school in China during COVID and double reduction, it was a crazy 5 years. I realized it's very hard to find amazing teachers for every single subject, for every single year of your kid's journey. So it's actually very timely, but at the same time, because of great inflation, because of profile expectation inflation, there's just not enough time for children to learn all these things. Imagine back in our days, we didn't really have STEAM, we didn't even have AI and all of this thing, but now everything is much earlier. Kids can go to university programs at the age of 12, right? So you must be under so much pressure as a parent. Okay, this can be a NASA at the age of 9, right? Yeah, there are these programs. So I actually really feel that students are under a lot of pressure and it's just not enough time. And that's why in many ways it's a good timing that AI has come on board. Because if students at the age of 11 to 15 are able to master the use of AI tools in a responsible and ethical and transparent, with a transparent mindset, which means I won't take everything AI tells me for granted, and they know how to question, and very, very importantly, they know how to learn something they have no idea about from scratch with the use of AI. It will empower them so much for their A-level, IB, DSE years, which is 16 to 18 years old, that age group. Otherwise, they'll be spending a lot of time getting tutoring, getting extra help, and not enough time building their profile for university application. And also, I've been talking to a lot of university, head of admissions, etc., from all over the world, in Hong Kong as well. Most students get into university now, even Hong Kong University for medicine, they pair you up with an AI institute. And actually for Hong Kong universities, I'm not sure whether it's because of the system or whether it's by design, different subject, different faculty actually has an independent AI institute. And I asked the medicine, the head of admissions, right? And they said actually it's for 2 objectives. One is of course you can collaborate and do biomed research, right, with the AI institute. But that's for the very talented students. But the second one is because they used to do 6 years of the curriculum, but now one of the years is called interconnected year, and they actually encourage students to go and open up their eyes and go abroad to study in Harvard and Cambridge, or just do a year of cooking for medic students, right? Which means 6 years of learning needs to be crammed into 5 years. Because one of the years is a little bit more flexible. So students actually join the AI Institute to learn how to augment their own learning to make it more effective and more efficient and more personalized. So if universities are doing that in year 1, imagine if the children are able to have that skill or mindset a little bit early on and benefiting from it already, it will really help them in the mid and long term.
Thank you. Speaking of that, I do see that in the past, we don't have this kind of like cross-disciplinary bachelor around or faculty around, but nowadays really see that in HKU, in UST, they have a lot of cross subject with AI concept in the learning. Because for medical, there are a lot of like AI in the research. For other courses like businesses, we always go into university to help them with the AI side, because we gotta bridge them from business with AI, so when they graduate, they at least know what's going on in the AI world. So speaking of this, maybe I will pass a question to Andrew, because Andrew, me and Andrew, we go to a lot of schools. I will ask Jen later on as well. She's supporting a lot of prestigious schools in Hong Kong as well. So what are schools like in the direction of AI? Are they open to it? Are they starting to think about having AI into curriculum? Because in the past years, we don't see that much, but this year, when everybody talk about it, how is school like in the directions?
I think as we are talking with Ellen and I have been going to a lot of schools and talking to principals, and I think the variation in terms of where they are in the AI transformation journey is actually quite large. It's quite varied. There are some schools, usually more international school and more of the prestigious schools, they are implementing more AI into their curriculum. They are integrating AI into a lot of the assessment work. Like for example, as I'm talking to my son, I know that they are using AI to give feedback for the students already in their assessment. He is doing IB curriculum, so there is a lot of writing, a lot of written work that needs to be done. So AI is actually a very good tool to give that kind of draft feedback for the students. So there are a number of schools that are really trying to integrate AI into the learning already. On the other end of the spectrum, besides schools that have not really started, there are schools that are really just using some piecemeal AI tools to help students or help teachers, but not really thinking about it in a holistic way, which in a way is actually very dangerous. So recently, about 2 months ago, I saw a study by OECD Digital Learning Report that one of the study they have done is that they have looked at students who have used AI tools in their homework. And of course, as you would imagine, the grades have increased quite significantly. It increased by 48% with the help of AI tools in their math homework grades. But once it comes around to the exam, when they don't have the AI as the tool to use anymore, their exam grade actually dropped by 17% compared to the control group. So what it tells you is that if we don't really develop the kind of literacy around AI, if we don't develop the critical thinking and to really teach students to use AI as a companion for them to learn and jump right ahead into adoption, into usage, it will be actually counterproductive in terms of allowing our students to learn.
Andrew, can you further share a bit of how do you think it's a responsible way to use AI? Are there any traits we do a lot of adult training program that we also integrate some of it into the teenage side. Could you share maybe 1 or 2 tips of how we as parents should be encouraging them to try, at the same time making sure they're responsibly using it?
Feelings come to mind, and maybe both Jen and Alan you can share as well. First of all, is understand the limitations, because AI tools are trained on data, and there will be stereotypes in the data, and there will be a lot of limitations on the kind of materials that AI tools have been exposed to. For example, one example I heard is that if you were to prompt an image of a person cleaning a house, very stereotypically you will see a woman in the picture. That's the kind of stereotype that a lot of time would come up in AI tools. So understanding the limitations in terms of accuracy, in terms of stereotype, is going to be important. So they can really have the critical thinking behind. The second thing is to really not to outsource the entire brain to AI, but to start thinking first and use AI as a companion to really help in the process. So develop the draft, develop the master plan, and have AI come back and actually assist in certain pieces. And along the way also start questioning both within the AI tool, and also start questioning and talking to other people from the process as well. So these are some of the ideas that come to mind in terms of responsible use.
Thank you, Andrew. So Jen, you have kids of very young age, like 6 and 8. Okay.
Not so young anymore.
So let me ask a critical question about screen time.
Oh.
So when do you start having them use screen, and how much time are you having them use screen every day?
Wow, okay. In that regard, I may not be very progressive. I'm actually quite old school in that sense. My home doesn't actually have a TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So, as in it's kind of close up. So actually, my kids do a lot of reading from physical books, and I actually think before the age of 10, I do want them, when they have free time, and you guys may disagree with me, but anyways, when they
I agree with you.
okay, good. When they have free time, I do want them to default to a book. The reason is I'm actually a very big advocate for what Eileen Gu talks about, which is the neuroplasticity. Basically, the neuroscience of learning is actually fundamentally based on nature. So how did cavemen learn? How did kind of thousands of years of people, how do they innovate? I feel that, and Alpha School is in US now is very popular. Over the past 2 years, they've developed this like AI school, right? Which advocates for 2 hours a day learning from computer. We don't know what's probably it's going to be very effective and probably very American aligned as well, because you have 80% of the time a day doing a lot of profile building things, right? But it would be interesting to see what is the outcome of such learning. I do think pen and paper writing, reading a book, actually does help with the brain processing. A lot of people now talk about ADHD and students, skipping lines when they're doing comprehension work, etc. Right? And a lot of research also says that it's because of the excessive screen time, and the eyes, the way the I don't know whatever it's called in the eyes, is used to actually flicking through images. So when it comes to static kind of work, they would actually end up automatically flicking as well. So I do think before the age of 10, I think 10 is actually a very critical age where you can do much more transformation. I used to say 12, but I think kids nowadays have matured more, so I would say 10 now. Is that before 10, I do limit screen time quite a lot. So maybe 10-15 minutes a day, if we even get to that. Otherwise, I'll just rather than spend an hour reading books. But they go crazy on planes. Like to Japan, 3 hours is like crazy watching, right? Yeah.
Buffet.
So I do think at the age of 9, 10, we do have to start releasing some autonomy for them to use screen. But my daughter's at an independent school, international independent school, so they do use screen time at school to do tech-related things. But I do think the pen and paper writing does consolidate learning, and also reading from physical books.
Thank you, Jen. So maybe I will ask a bit of like Andrew then. How do we balance? We have parents of young kids thinking about like screen time, but we also know that we need to like advocate learning about programming, learning about technology, so they have the appetite about it or getting ready for the future. So how do you see the balance between the two?
I think there are a few points. The first point is from a parent's point of view. My son is 15, so screen time is kind of out of the window already. Because also they do need to constantly use the computer for homework, for learning, and all that. So it's a little bit hard. But a lot of times it's about what you can draw them into outside of the computer. So scheduling activities, traveling together, having weekend activities together. He actually does read books, physical books, and it's because those are of subjects that he likes, the fictions that he likes. So a lot of time to balance the screen time, you really have to find the things that are going to be exciting and interesting for the kid, so that they are pursuing those activities as opposed to sticking to the screen, because by comparison, the screen will be very boring. The second thing is that a lot of time, screen is only a medium, right? Like, there are a lot of things that you can do with the screen, and there are a lot of things that you can teach. So, for example, at preface, one of the philosophy that we hold true is the unplugged usage, unplugged mode of teaching. So that we are teaching the concepts without actually having the kids stick to the screen.
Can I ask a question to parents? Do you know our like unplug and plug ratio in a class? Like in 1 hour time, how much time your kids are off screen to do the mind mapping, to do the flow chart? Anyone can answer the question? Not sure about it. Then teacher Jane will be very sad about it. He's the one who trained a trainer and also like making sure the philosophy is there. So we actually have 40% time unplug to make sure they are on paper and pen. So nowadays you see the workbook coming back with all the thinking before going onto the screen. So I think that part is super important to sum it up, I would say, because even if we want them to learn about, like, let's say programming or stuff, but the main thing is what Jen said, the paper and pen, making sure they think before they work on the screen. Jen.
Yeah, I also just want to add, it's not that I'm against using the laptop or screen time. It's just I hope that when they see the screen, they see it as a constructive companion. So they go there to learn from like National Geographic. My son loves animals, so he actually goes there to watch like National Geographic videos and things like that. But doesn't go there to play video games that much. I'm not against video games. I think apparently to be a good doctor in the future, you should be a very good gamer. You have fingers, dexterity, you should be very good with robotics, okay, you can play that. But I just think, especially before students actually have that self-awareness and self-discipline, if they see the screen and they see it's a game, they will always gravitate. And to be honest, over the past why I'm so disciplined about this, I think it's the only thing I succeed in with disciplining on the screen time. It's just I've really seen a lot of students at the age of teenager years, and I am the counselor fighting gaming. And the way I fight gaming is so painful because the parents, they wouldn't listen to parents, right? They stop video gaming and they're not in boarding school, or the parents just send them to boarding school, like all like completely cut off gaming. Then for them it's also very painful. But we actually had to go with these teenagers and look at their schedule, draw out their schedule with them, and then they can be playing video game until like 2 a.m. So how many hours can you just cut from 4 to like 1.5, right, every day? But then the time that you've now saved, what can you then do? And that's when you start the sports, start getting them out of the home, start doing some reading or some community work. You have to actively fill those times. So I think it's really important for students from a young age how they perceive that screen. And some kids are amazing, just use it for research, they use it to learn, they use it for a little bit of gaming, but they don't associate it to relaxation.
Right.
That would be very scary.
Thank you, Jen. So I know we don't have a lot of time, so I would love to hear from you as well. Like final question would be, so because some parents are very upfront and they know a lot about AI already, but some don't and don't know how to talk to the kids about AI. So what is your final recommendation for them if they have to talk about AI with the children? How should they start or what direction they should go?
I think it's twofold. One is it's always good to learn yourself first, because without having at least some basic knowledge or know what are the possibilities, it's very hard for you to open up the conversation. But once you have that, it would be more of an open conversation, exploration. It could be learning something together. When my son is in boarding this year, so he'll be back this weekend. So one of the things that we are starting to think about is SAT. So can we actually use AI to create an SAT study plan and also mock questions together? So having some project to do together will be a good way to have that conversation.
Thank you, Andrew.
I think I agree with that. So basically, parents, child learning together. I think they will surpass you, well, surpass me at least, maybe not you, but me, very quickly. But I also think I would like to leave them to trusted professionals, right? Whose teaching methodologies are aligned with myself. I honestly think it'll be great, and that's why Anne and I have been talking about this. These kids are so time stretched, right? What if they can learn AI while they're learning their subject context? So can they learn AI through English? Can they learn AI through Chinese? Or learn Chinese through AI? I'm not sure which way around it is. But that way, then they'll really see it's helping them constructively, and at the same time, you can really teach mindset. So how can you ask AI to help you write this essay without writing it for you? You can actually prompt them. Please show me the steps of how to write this essay, but do not write it for me, right? So I think that kind of mindset is actually very important for students to learn, especially as young teens. I think for the older teens, I think they would have a bit more sense. But I think for the younger teens, this is like magic, right? I put 3 words in and my whole essay comes out. And I think it's important at that age to do intervention.
Thank you so much, Shen. Please allow me to wrap up with one findings we saw from World Economic Forum, because I see that a lot of parents are panicking about, would all the jobs be taken by AI in the future? Yes, there are numbers showing that maybe 97 million of jobs will be taken away or displaced. But there are actually one key point, which is 170 millions of new job opportunities will be there because of AI as well. So I just want to maybe leave the floor with like a positive energy, so we can explore different things together. And in case you have any questions, just let us know. Kids are coming back right now. Maybe I can open the floor to one or two questions while Jen and Andrew is here. If you have any questions about parenting, AI, or schools, any questions from the floor?
Maybe just a proper question.
All right.
We talk about story. We talk about how to get them started. I think the real core here is how do we get them really switch on? Because if they don't switch on, they don't know what they want, right? I know what I want, but I probably don't know what I want when I was like 15. That is the key question always in my mind. How do we really get them switch on? At their age, right, can be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. One point when you switch on, you'll be there. Because you know what you want. If you don't really know what you want, that won't be it, right? Yeah.
I would say that's what we do day in, day out. And the encouraging remark for that is every single kid can be switched on. It's really quite remarkable. But we have to give them a little bit of space to let them make that choice. So for example, so I think every time we see a student, we always ask, or a parent, we always ask the student to come together, and preferably both parents come at the same time. It's like a family discussion. And parents always say at the end of the session, they're like, wow, I learned something about my child today. Nearly 90% of the time. And I also always do a psychological kind of test for myself to see if this family is going to be difficult to work with. Like if I work with one kid or 3 people or 6, okay? So what I do is I put a piece of paper and I see who grabs it. And then I put a piece of pen out and I'll see who grabs that one, okay? And the rest of the pens all grab it and the kids are sitting in the middle and I'm like, okay. Then I'll do something really annoying. I'll take the piece of paper, both, and I'll take the piece of pen and then give it to the kid. Today's about you. You write the notes down. And then for sure, the mom will say like, but he will miss things out. I was like, don't worry. If you don't write, he won't miss anything out. And it's so true. So I think the first thing is, the kid needs to feel so respected that he has the agency, even if you want to fake it. You can call me afterwards and tell me what you want to say to him, but in his presence, especially, I think, I usually work with like 12 and above, right? So they start getting a bit sassy, either they're sassy or they're just demoralized and they're like unmotivated and they think they're a failure because they're in a school that is like really cookie cutter or So anyways, depends on what background they come from, they could be in the different dynamics. And some of them are very healthy, right? When parents are very healthy parenting style, etc. But I can tell you, as a parent, it's so difficult, okay? I struggle all every day. And even my 2 kids, they have completely different personalities. I feel like I'm bipolar and I only have 2, yeah? Imagine I have 4 and I'll be like, going in crazy directions. But okay, so number 1, I think it's really agency and respect. Number 2 is ask questions. So, what do you care about? They're like, nothing. Oh, no. You don't ask open-ended questions. Because if you ask that, you'll definitely get that response. It's an IDK. Okay. So you give them multiple choice. A, elderly. B, babies. C, handicapped community. The D, okay, give them all. They'll be like, if you think none of them is interesting, or they usually will be like, if you give them multiple choice and there's no like none of the above, or all of the above, then they'll start choosing and they'll like take a few. And be like, okay, then can you now prioritize? Then they may or may not be. But even if they do prioritize, it might not be genuine. Okay, so maybe I want to help elderly with their grandmother at home. Okay, fine. Then you just start with that. Okay, then why don't you do this? Why don't you and you send them some like TED Talks, maybe not TED Talks, that's a little bit too boring for some of them. But send them a video. Maybe a YouTube clip, which is like really provoking, right? and then ask them, oh, what do you think about that, right? So currently, like one of my students, I'm not working now, by the way. I'm taking a break for this year, okay, just to put it out there. But a kid now is actually doing a YouTube blog. Yeah. So, but not YouTube blog on gaming, but YouTube blog on community stuff. So we give them some top questions and they go find YouTube and we get them to compete and see who has a more wow YouTube, okay? Has a more wow story, right? Yeah. So, so we start with that. And then you ask them about their extracurricular activities. The third question, I'm giving them all the free consultation there.
Thank you.
I'm telling you how the insights and how you do it, but I can tell you not every counselor can do it. I've trained lots of counselors and most of them can't do it. Third thing you ask them is extracurricular activities, yeah? And then you ask them, why do you do it? You'll be surprised. Some of them will be like, I've been doing it for the past 14 years since I could walk. And you're like, well, why? I don't know, my mom liked me playing tennis, so I've been playing tennis, seriously. And then some of them will be like, oh, these my friends play. And then you start ranking what they like doing, right? And then you ask them, if you could have all the resources and all the time in the world, like just trying to think crazy, what would you want to do? Right? And then you get a real answer from that, right? And some of them are very skeptical, really? I have all the time in the world, I have all the resources. So it really takes a lot of time to get to the bottom of it. But by asking these genuine questions, and if they know whatever they say won't be judged by the parents and the third party staring at them, they will do this family counseling behind the scene, okay? Sometimes you just have to give them one or two small wins. For example, I hate violin, but my mom keeps wanting me to play violin. Okay, well, kids are not listening here. Then just release them of that one thing, because that one thing probably will never be on their profile. Because it will never be something they want to talk about. It will never be the top 10 things they want to do. So just like release it on them. If you release one thing, they'll be like, wow, I have a voice. And they will start telling you what they want to do. And that's when the agency comes in. And it will take time. The fastest ones we found was like 2-3 years and you really get a spark. Some of them take like 4 or 5 years, right? But the shortest one I've worked on is 9 months. So this kid came back a few weeks ago to say hi to me. He failed BSE, he failed IB, and he came to us and said, I only have one aspiration, and that is to get back into a university. That's not anyone. London University. Okay, so but then he got in 9 months. He got into London University, and he's now a banker in Canada. So again, it's for that one is really interesting. The dad wanted to do economics. He will never become an economist because his maths was weak. But he ended up getting into marketing and management, and he's now a banker. So it's just like you just need to talk to them.
No, teenage daddy.
Okay, well, I also went to the talk that you went to last week. One of the one of the example. So the point I want to make is that also make sure that you give them space and you maintain a good relationship, because then information will come. So the story from that talk that I remember very well is that there was a college applicant who was saying he has amazing relationship with his family during the whole college application process, because they actually have this college application hour every week. So they talk all they want about college application during this hour. But outside of that hour, they stay off that way. So just consciously having that space and maintaining that relationship is very important to make sure that the information flows to you. Because otherwise, if 24/7 you are really harping on your kid about grades or about future, then they only associate you with that.
Can I just add one thing that I learned today?
Actually, I've known this for many years, I suppose. But I really do think this is so important, and this is nothing to do with AI, I'm sorry. But today I went to a talk by this very famous former principal, and she reminded me the importance of gratitude. And I think in this day and age, it's so important for students to really have that mindset. So I'm going to start implementing it at home, and let's see how consistent I can be. But in every week, we can sit down with our children and really think about like, what are we grateful for? You know why this is so important? In my 16 years of dealing with teenagers, the ones who really go far in life, and I'm talking about not just getting to university, but now they're like 36, where my older ones have kids in my kindergarten. So it's like, it's the kids who are genuinely grateful and who actually will stay in touch with people and who actually will give back to community, and therefore they will automatically build a network. And not because I need to know you, because you will give me something back. It's just a genuinely nice person. It's usually because they are very grateful. So I've had students who we literally broke up back helping them, but they just, I paid you, so you should do this. Even till now, they have that mindset. It's like I'm entitled, you know. Not all these jobs are not good enough for me, right? But some kids, they're already very good. Sometimes I'm like, I can't take credit for you getting to Oxford with scholarship. They're like, I'm so grateful you helped with this thing, right? But these kids are usually the ones who always come back to visit, and then whenever they need something, they'll pick up the phone and we'll definitely help them again. And I imagine that's just my relationship with her or him. All the relationships they have with all the other people, those are the people who will then really support them in life. So I really think that if kids have that genuine gratefulness, they're happier, they are easier to motivate, and they are actually more willing to try, because they feel like, oh, this is like a great opportunity, everything's great, you know. And also when they fail, they feel like, that's not too bad. Many people are having worse than me, and they will build network. So I'm going to start with my children.
Weekly grateful hour.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Andrew, for bringing this up.